Hello everyone and welcome to the DevOps Summit Canada. It is honor to be here with you. My topic is assessment on open source tools for DevOps practices implementation. Why open source tools? Team O'Reilly said that empowerment of individuals is a key part of what makes open source work. And since in the end, innovations tend to come from small groups, not from large structured efforts. And this complements DevOps culture well. I have tried to put together my thoughts around a small framework that can be used for assessing and analyzing open source tools for DevOps practices implementation. It also helps in decision making in general. Before going further, first of all, I would like to thank you all for coming together for this thought-provoking event. And before I start my session, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Mitesh, and I have authored few books related to DevOps, such as Hands-on Azure DevOps and Hands-on Pipeline as a Code with Jenkins, Hands-on Pipeline as YML with Jenkins. And I also love to contribute to Levika's podcast, where we try to review books based on what we learn after reading those books. We have recorded two podcasts on two books, The Phoenix Project and Agile Conversation till now. And next in line is leading the transformation, applying Agile and DevOps principle at scale. So watch out for it. Before we going through the agenda, let me tell you something that I struggle with. So usually when I visit restaurants, I'm always in dilemma. Selection of food items is difficult task for me somehow. And at times I ask the chef or people serving the food about the best food items of that restaurant or what is special for today. And at times, food items are chosen by people who are with me. And this continued until I faced some issues with food. And then I decided to select my food items based on my experiences on what kind of food is suitable to me. Most of the time, open source tool selections also face similar issues. But let's try to find out answers with infograph theory in simplistic manner. Let's see what is on the menu today. So we will discuss perception tail and problem statement considering open source tool selection in DevOps practices implementation, continuous practices or how multiple practices affect tool selection, robustness and opportuneness based approach to evaluate tools, and application of RO approach in tool selection. Let's move towards perception of tail. There is a popular tale or folk tale originated in ancient Indian subcontinent. A group of blind men heard that a strange animal had been brought to the town, but none of them were aware about its shape and form. And out of curiosity, they decided that we must inspect and know it by touch of which we are capable of. So they all touch different body parts and accordingly assumes that elephant looks like how elephants looks like, and then disagree because their version led to different points of view. So one wise man informs them that, okay, the elephant is a very large animal. You all touched only one part, and perhaps if you put the parts together, you might understand the truth or form or shape of the elephant. Similarly, to learn truth or to come to a logical conclusion, we must put all the parts, perspectives, sides, feature, needs together. When we talk about digital transformation or culture transformation, it is a journey. And transformation needs phase-wise implementation of DevOps practices and automation to accelerate it. And open source tools are the main accelerators in this journey. Hence, it is important how we assess, analyze, and utilize open source tools in the end-to-end pipeline, as automation tools needs to be chosen based on vision, existing skill sets, and strategic priorities, and many more other parameters which differs to based on organization to organization. We are going to discuss about framework to assess open source tools for culture transformation and mindset change to start the DevOps journey. I do not have magic formula. We are just introducing one way to assess tools. However, parameters and other things differ based on existing culture of different organizations. Now let's go to the problem statement. Let's take archery as an example or analogy to the problem. The purpose is to shoot arrows at a target. Consider Apple. It is a very well-known game, but let's consider it as a real-life situation. It looks simple, but many factors are associated with archery. So there are different types of arrows and bows and having different weights. Similarly, different kinds of tools, culture, skill set in the organization. And when you are in competition, fueling your body with the right kind of food and knowledge about it is also necessary. Similarly, right kind of thought, process, knowledge of application, architecture, and their existing culture and tool sets are equally important. It is also important how external factors affect. To aim well in the wind, you need to be aware of surroundings and direction of the wind also. One other thing to consider is that the direction of the wind has a more or less predictable effect on your arrows. For example, wind coming at you from behind the target usually pushes arrow down, and wind coming from behind you usually makes your arrow fly slight higher. So before releasing an arrow, all this factor needs to be considered. Hence, it is extremely important to consider all aspects and then release the arrow. Now, consider open source tools and DevOps related scenarios in the context here. Similarly, to select an appropriate open source tool for automation, we need to consider application requirements, existing technology stacks, skill set, training available for resources, external factors such as regulatory and compliance requirements based on organization policy, market trends, future direction of the organization as well as the tool. Because as a decision maker, we will have to consider each and every factor. Open source tools are critical for building the DevOps tool chain because most of the time DevOps practices implementation normally starts with open source tools. And some tools have captured the nerve of digital transformation, like Jenkins and Kubernetes and different other tools also. However, there are challenges also. So what are the challenges? There are constant changes in the open source tools and technology, and multiple new tools are coming to market with new features, and that requires technical skills and collaborative mindset to analyze them and integrate into pipelines based on existing culture of an organization. And as we all know, DevOps is an approach that differs from organization to organization as it is focused on culture. Usually there are two options. One is end-to-end solution, and second, best open source tools can be selected in specific category of continuous practices which are integrated into pipeline. It is important to factor in all requirements and not to leave any unknown spots to avoid future issues of complexities or roadblocks or problems in the culture transformation process. More or less, we get features and roadmaps defined by tools and vendors. However, DevOps is not a tools-based approach. It is a tools agnostic approach. It should be tools agnostic approach, and it should be integrated in existing culture in a way that any tool can be used to transform the culture, considering the vision of the organization. Now, let's see how continuous practices makes difference. So these DevOps practices are implemented using tools from development to deployment processes. DevOps practices implementation is usually is phase-wise approach that we have already discussed and can be decided using formula for change and nudge theory. I have discussed both in detail in context of DevOps in my book, Agile DevOps and Cloud Computing with Microsoft Azure. Mapping this DevOps practices to tool chain and standardization helps us to finalize tools based on what is required and not what tools are providing as features. Each continuous practice might have difference based on existing tools, maturity level, and culture of an organization. And a DevOps culture provides huge scope for adoption of open source tools. The question is, how to select tools in specific areas of SDLC. So let's try to understand and use infogap theory to get some clarity on the selection of tools or for decision making. So robustness, it is also known as robustness and opportuneness based approach. Infogap decision theory seeks to optimize robustness to failure under severe uncertainty. It has been developed by Jacob Benheim. There are three components of it. One, what are your goals? Second, what are your options? And three, infogaps, which are boundaries of your knowledge. Infogap is a decision theory which seeks to assist in decision making. And robustness and opportuneness model is one of them, where minimum level of desired outcome and windfall outcome are taken into consideration. So the robustness of the decision lies in the minimum outcome required out of a preferred outcome, whether your minimum requirements are fulfilled or not. A decision that is certain to achieve an acceptable outcome is preferable to a decision that can fail to achieve an acceptable outcome. While the opportuneness generates preferences among the available decisions. However, these inclinations may not be in line with the choices generated by the robustness, but it helps in case robustness doesn't provide you proper selection criteria or proper ranking. Now let's consider what we have done here. So application of RO approach for tool selection. So what we have considered, or what I have considered, is factors and features or desired capabilities for efficient tool selection. Then we are assigning label. It describes level of that feature or desired capabilities expected from very high to low. Ranking has been given. And then rating of tools. So all tools have been given rating based on features and capability to achieve that feature or functionality, from efficiently achievable to not achievable. And this calculation is for representation purpose only. Now coming to application of RO approach tool selection. Group of expert or stakeholders can create the features or list of features or desired capabilities expected from tools, that is expected from the experts. And then what we do is we divide all features in the buckets of robustness or opportuneness based on our requirements, existing tool sets, skills, maturity level, and culture of an organization. Then what we do is we attach one more level of importance to the list of features, and then ranking is given to the tools based on existing knowledge or skills or based on proof of concepts or exploration. It takes time, but that's how you create those that entire thing. Based on the features, label, and ranking, entire data is created. Now let's go to robustness bucket. All the robustness related features are listed here. And here, when we consider robustness, we can ask different questions while categorizing features as well. Like, what is the essential outcome? What we need to achieve in order to make the decision acceptable? What will be the worst outcome that is acceptable? Achieving critical outcomes. How to be robust to surprise, or most robust will have a highest priority. Now let's go to the opportunist bucket. Here is a list of all the features in opportunist bucket. And when we are considering opportunists, we can ask different questions such as what is windfall outcome, whether something is better than anticipated, how to exploit opportunities, and what are the wonderful to have features. Now, all these questions can be asked, and after all the calculations, what we have is final ranking of all tools. Now consider A as existing tool and then compare all different tools relative to that particular ranking. Calculate the percentage, and using RO approach, what we are showing here is it provides two kind of preferences. One is preference based on robustness can be used as a primary criteria. And second, preference based on opportuneness can be useful in case robustness based preference is not decision. In this case, more or less robustness provides similar kind of results, but here we can use opportuneness to select the tool as it can be decisive factor in future. and that is considered in when we are considering 86% and 70%. So this is all about what how we can select specific tools. I have covered small part of infograph theory based on my understanding, and hence there is a lot of scope for improvement also. To get more details on infograph theory, all kind of real life examples and mathematical formulas, attend session by Jacob and Haim on innovation, optimization, and their dilemmas and infograph perspective. And there is another good resource is 4 steps to adopt open source software as part of the DevOps toolchain. Also gives detailed insights. Thank you so much.